All right, good afternoon. Welcome to today's Park Commission board meeting. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If all will stand, please. I'll go ahead and recite it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right, can we start with a roll call of members, please?
Andy Hayden.
Here.
Denise Freeland.
Here.
Bill Bryan. Ralph Dublicar.
Here.
Pat Quick.
Here.
All right, very good, thank you. We're going to go ahead and adopt today's agenda for Wednesday, May 6, 2020. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Very good. By Denise, and a second?
Second.
Second's been made, thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and opposed nay. Ayes will carry. All right, we'll move directly into public comment. What do we have today, Bob?
We have two questions. The first one is from Josh Staley from Paris Township. He asked, will Stark Parks endorse and support the current proposed legislation at the state of Ohio, House Bill 476? This bill does not eliminate the power of eminent domain from a park district, but gives landowners protection against its use. Given that Stark Parks has stated it will not use this power to acquire land, this endorsement would be a perfect gesture to show citizens of Stark County how serious the park is about this issue. Furthermore, will Stark Parks publicly encourage other park districts to support this legislation through the organization Ohio Parks and Recreation Association?
Okay. I can address that question on behalf of the board and on behalf of the Park District. So thank you for your question regarding your position on the pending legislation here in Columbus, Mr. Staley. The Stark County Park District has previously answered your question as to our position to not use eminent domain to take farmland for park purposes. Historically, the Park District has not taken a position to lobby the state legislature on pending legislation, even when it has had a direct impact on the Park District. For example, we took no position on the most recent 15% in the UDOT funds for park roads, which directly increased park funds. More importantly, I want to shift our attention to what we are doing in this time during COVID-19 to better serve the citizens of Stark County. We are looking to do a better job of communicating with the public, since a lot of the challenges over this past year were confusing to the public, especially in regards to the Park District and things we already do, but the public doesn't understand. Some of those things include, we do always have public meetings prior to new projects, and we review our board meeting schedule with that accessibility to the public on every occasion. We publish our budget, which we already do at every board meeting, as you know, on our website and in our annual report. Thirdly, exploring revenue other than taxes for operations. We have addressed that. We believe we are doing a good job on that in regards to capital projects, but we are going to work to do a better job on that when it comes to operations of the Park District. And then lastly, we are exploring cost-cutting opportunities such as hard surfacing, high maintenance trail sections, which many of the public has seen already as we go forward. So hopefully that does answer your question. I think you had a second question as well, am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Staley had a second question that we got for this meeting. And he said, can you please describe the purpose of the funding source listed as state capital grant on line item 117 of the Exhibit B budget in the amount of $537,427. And I think Barb is prepared to answer that question.
Okay.
Yes, the answer to that question is this was a reimbursement from the 2017 state capital grant. The grant award was for $980,000, which was the total grant award that was a contract to IAP Government Services to perform Magnolia Mill restoration. That included new roof, exterior facade, windows, doors, and electric upgrades. They fully performed the contract leaving us a balance of $12,643.15. This last reimbursement was $537,426 for that project that was spent last year.
Last year, okay,
I can't.
understood. All right, do we have any other questions from the public, Bob, that you're aware of?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, before we move into today's agenda and the approval of our minutes, and we'll go through old business, new business, et cetera, I do want to take this time to thank the public, the Stark County residents and the voters for supporting our recent levy. These are very trying times, as many do know, whether we're in COVID-19 or not, and certainly we are. It made it all the more problematic to get our word out to the public, but we want the public to rest assured that both before, during, and after this pandemic we're facing, the Stark County Park District is focused on the utilization of tax funds, of the public's resources, if you will, as best as we possibly can, with as much input from the public as possible. We'll continue to do that through the coming years and throughout the longevity of this levy of these funds that the public has made available to us. So we are appreciative of that and of the Park District staff for their hard work in putting all that together. So many thanks. I wanted to express that on behalf of the board. Okay, let's move into the approval of the minutes from April 1st of 2020. That regular board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Very good, Pat. And a second?
Second.
All right. And any discussion in regards to those minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes will carry for April 1st of 2020. As you know, we also had minutes for April 29th, 2020 that we do need to approve. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Those minutes.
So moved.
Very good, Ralph. Thank you for that. And a second?
Second.
Second's been made. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
That was by Denise. Second by Denise. All right. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes will carry. All right. We're going to move into financial reports for March 2020. Do I have a motion to accept for audit the financial report and the summary financial report for the period ending March 31st, 2020, as submitted to you? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Very good, Pat. And a second?
Second.
Second has been made. Thank you. And discussion. All right, we're going to move first. We're going to discuss, I should say first, the summary financial report. I am going to do a little bit of trickery here. See how bad I don't mess it up. Here we go. I had no question in regards to the summary financial report. Any of the board members have any questions in that regard?
No.
Okay. We're going to move on to the grant status. I'm trying to keep this frame up and running while I pull up my other one because I did have a question on there. I had no question on the grant stat. I'm sorry, on the budget. We're moving into the budget. Any questions in regards to the budget? Hearing none. Move on to the grant status. As you see listed in front of you, there's 7 or 8 of those, if I'm not mistaken. Bob, have those dates changed since we have had to shutter some facilities and have staff work from home? Do we need to change any of the dates of those status of those grants for project completion?
We probably will, and the state isn't, most of them have indicating the willingness to work with us. We have not officially applied to extend those yet, because we don't know what date to extend them to until we get fully operational again.
Okay.
So those will probably be changing as we move forward, and all the grantors that I'm familiar with at this point have been cooperative about saying they're not going to be draconian about the deadlines.
Understood. Okay. I had no further questions in regards to this grant status. Any other questions from the board regarding the grant status? All right, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes will carry on that. Moving on to payroll and bills. March 2020. Do I have a motion to accept for audit the payroll and bills for the period ending March 31st, 2020 as submitted to you?
So moved.
All right, Ralph first, and I think that was Denise as the second. Thank you very much. Discussion. Fortunately, I have to pull this up one more time. I did have one question, I believe. There we go. Okay. Line 85. That's the treasurer. I asked a different question in regard to these real estate taxes last time, but Barb, clarify for me if you would, please. That figure that we see for 2019 first half real estate taxes, $30,000, $341. In layman's terms, am I correct that that is merely 2 to 3% of each household that pays property tax cumulative?
That's the taxes that we pay on the property that we buy in the year of acquisition.
Okay, those are the ones we buy, not those that are received.
Correct.
Because this is, okay, that explains, because these are expenditures.
Yes.
Okay. Otherwise, that 30,000 would be significantly higher. If that was what we see. Okay, I had no other questions in regards to payroll and bills. Any other questions in regard to payroll and bills from the board? All right, hearing none, move it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes will carry. We are going to move on to old business, which each month is, or it has been, our upcoming events. All of these you see noted in front of you. They're of course subject to the Ohio Department of Health's directives and the governor's orders as to whether these events occur or not. A few of them are meetings, including our own park board meeting, which will remain via Zoom if need be. Any questions in regarding to those events or any updates from park staff?
Just to note that the spring plant sale is a no contact sale. It's a drive up pickup type thing. So we're trying to still provide the service without violating public contact.
Okay, that makes sense. Very good. All right, we're going to move on to new business. We'll start with resolution 20-05-030. That is the adoption of the telecommuting policy. It's Exhibit A on your tablets there in front of you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Very good, Pat. And a second? Second by Ralph. Thank you. Discussion. I read this. It's pretty straightforward. Any updates in that regard, Bob?
Just normally we would present a policy at this meeting and ask you to adopt it at the following meeting to give you a full month of review. Under the current situation, we felt that it was imperative we get this policy in place since we're operating essentially under this type of situation with many people working from home. And then if there are issues as we use it that we need to tweak or revise it, we'll bring them back to you for revision. But we felt it was imperative to get this adopted immediately rather than waiting the normal 30
Right.
days for you to adopt a policy.
Okay, understood. Any further discussion or questions by the board regarding that policy? All right, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes will carry. Move on to resolution 20-05-031. That's the 2020 project list and budget to be Exhibit B, sent to you electronically. Do I have a motion? Very good. Was that Denise?
That was me.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Second by Pat. Thank you. Discussion on this. You can see the various projects that were moving forward and quite frankly, those that were not as well. So
This is typically in the past practice, which we're obviously we had two impacts on our budgeting process. One was the status of the levy, and two was the pandemic. The staff collectively has worked very, very hard to get you this document. However, there were some things that came in last minute that I'd like to go over with you to suggest changes to this document as presented. One is strictly a correction of designation under grants that on line 5, the WRSP entries are marked as federal and they're actually state grants. This doesn't change anything budget-wise. The significance of labeling them is if we go over, and Barb, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's $500,000 in federal grants in a year, then we're subject to an additional audit by the federal requirements. But
It's 750 now.
so 750, okay, thank you, Barb. But these were not federal, they were state, so it doesn't trigger that requirement. So that's the first change. It's not a financial change. The second change is along the lines of additional maintenance to lower our operating costs. We had already budgeted for $40,000 for repairs to Mahoning Valley Trail with the stone surface, but we also had a separate budget of $55,000 for asphalt and or chip and seal throughout the county on the various trail locations. After we reviewed the schedule, which we just got finished this morning, it was determined that rather than patch with limestone that Mahoning Valley Trail, we moved those monies into the chip and seal. So we'd be basically moving it from line 65 on the budget to line 35 to change it from, did I say that in the right order, Barb?
Yes, she's indicating yes.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, to increase the chip and seal / asphalt budget by that 40,000, rather than repair the trail in an area that floods with stone, we're going to switch it over to a more hard surface.
Okay, makes sense.
And then additionally, once we looked at the entire list and knowing where we are in the budget process, we are recommending that we reallocate or we additionally appropriate from line 1 and 23, which is the unallocated funds of over $300,000 that were not budgeted yet, and adding an additional $68,000 to that same project list. And then Barb, you're going to share the overall project list for them to see where the projects are proposed. Again, these are ideas, these are things, we experimented with last year to very good success. I think we've had 1 or 2 areas that we may need to touch up, but for the most part, it's been very successful. These are the projects and their rankings. And you can see the yellow highlights on them are the type of surface. So walking through Petros is proposed to be chip and sealed at a cost of $16,000 for a portion of the trail of Petros of 2,400 feet. Middle Branch near Veterans Park, which is up in Plain Township, 1,100 feet for $7,600. And Sippo Main Park, 2 locations for $9,500. And the second one at the Exploration Gateway for $45,000. Now that one is asphalt. And then the towpath north of the county line, south to the bridge at the northern end, that's asphalt, and that's $67,000 and change. And then a Hoover Trail section for $4,000, and a towpath section for $17,000. And then we go back to chip and seal for West Branch, that's near the Hall of Fame for $29,000 and change. And then Mahoning Valley had 2 sections. We wanted to try, since that was so potentially expensive in a high floodplain area, we wanted to try, do only half of that for $15,000 this year and see how it holds up with chip and seal. One, because that's another $60,000 to $150,000 depending on what type of surface. And we didn't want to use chip and seal if it's not going to work on that big of a project.
Okay.
So all told, that comes up to $172,000, which is why we're asking for the additional appropriation of approximately $68,000 to cover all this. This would all be bid work, advertised for and bid, both the chip and seal and the asphalt. in accordance with our normal construction projects. So the idea then is this will help lower our year-to-year maintenance costs, because these are the high maintenance areas of the trails that we have. And then we'll look for next year to continue this, where if new areas crop up or if some of these don't hold up with chip and seal, we'd have to either put a second chip and seal coat or switch to asphalt. So that is the extent of the revisions to the budget as we originally sent it to you last Monday.
Bob, the question on line 2, Middle Branch Trail Veterans Park, does that repair of damaged chip and seal include the backside, the far south side that runs parallel to Rice's nursery, that straightaway?
Yes, and the staff met with the Park District, Plain Township Park District, because technically that's their land, and there's a drainage problem that's creating that.
Okay,
So we're going to work with them to try to straighten that out at the same time. But yes, that's the area.
very good. Thank you. Okay,
One other thing I did want to point out is the contingency that still remains. We do not want to be aggressive about using that this year until we see we have done the best job. Barb's worked very hard to try to project what our revenues will be, which are lower projection than last year in terms of taxes and revenue from sales that we normally do and rentals. But nobody can predict what's going to happen the second half of this year. So that's our contingency against reduced revenue beyond what we're expecting.
okay. All right. Any further discussion for this resolution 031 in regard to the project list and budget? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes will carry.
By the way, did we lose Denise or is it just on my screen?
Yeah, we did lose him. Yep.
You're right.
Hey guys, it's Mike. I just talked to her via email. Her computer rebooted and she's joining back right now.
Okay,
So, we probably ought to see if she had any questions about the budget and re-vote then, or ask for her vote.
I have to say, Bob, I'm a real fan of the chip and seal, especially in the wintertime. I find you get better traction. I hope it holds up, but it's much to walk on in the winter. I
Well,
really,
we're optimistic again, and most of the township roads are chip and seal. We may have to resurface them the first time a little sooner, but over time, it basically is an asphalt surface. But you can see from the numbers on the budget, it's significantly less expensive than the asphalt version. Okay. Denise, are you live?
Back, yeah.
back.
How much of the discussion did you hear about the budget?
I heard the beginning and the end.
Denise, if you wanted us to cut the meeting short, you should have just told me in advance.
Yeah.
So the cliff notes on my explanation were that we basically were trying to help lower our operating costs by doing more extensive hard surfacing of trails. We put up the schedule of locations. It amounts to moving $68,000 from the unallocated funds into the chip and seal / asphalting project on the budget that currently is budgeted for $65,000, and also moving $40,000 from the limestone repair of the Mahoning Valley Trail into that same account, so that we put it all in hard surface rather than limestone as far as repairs. So that's basically an increase in overall budget of about from the unappropriated balance of $68,000. So that's the cliff notes of that. Any questions,
No, I don't think so.
Andy, that you want to go ahead and, I don't know, were you on when they voted or not?
No.
Okay, we'll revote now. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the ayes will carry. Moving on to resolution 20-05-032. That's the 2020 budget certificate of resources and appropriation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, Pat, and a second.
Second.
Second by Ralph. Thank you. Discussion on this, please.
I'll leave that to Barb.
Okay.
This is to get all the money in place that we're going to spend for grants and money that we've already been received as reimbursement. And then what we talked about, some of them we think we're going to have lower monies come in. So we wanted to do a negative certificate on those accounts. So that's what those are for. And they match up to the project list and budget.
Yes, that we looked at earlier. Okay. I had no further questions. Any questions from the board regarding resolution 032? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes will carry. Lastly, we want to go new business resolution 20-05-033. Those are 2020 staffing updates. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Very good. Denise, and a second.
Second.
Second by Ralph. Thank you. Discussion on this. I believe this is about our captain's position, if I recall correctly. Right, Bob?
Yeah, it's a few positions that were, all these changes are within the current salary budget, so they don't take any change in appropriation. But we wanted to explain them to you because we basically have eliminated the Justin Laps's former position as captain. And if you remember, we made that position as a transition when we knew Dan George was retiring, and we didn't feel we needed to replace it. Obviously, Justin acted as captain for several years, and then he got appointed as chief. He hopes to be here for quite a while, so we didn't want to recreate that position. But we do want to create a promotion position of sergeant to have a rank position on each shift.
Right.
And at the cost of $3,500, no more than $3,500, depending on who qualifies for the position. It amounts to a 10% increase. So it would not exceed $3,500. And then that would give each shift having a ranked person on staff, on site, if Justin weren't on that particular shift. And it's not an additional staffing increase in that case.
Okay.
The other position was the crew worker 1 position. This gentleman has been on for the past year as a contingent employee, subject to whether we pass the levy. He has performed outstanding. He's a big asset to the working crews that maintain the parks and trails, and we would like to make that a permanent position. That one does increase operating a little bit because of the benefits that go with the full-time position and a slight increase in salary, but it's already in the budget for this year, but the position wasn't. So,
Okay.
and then the last thing was to create a separate overtime category. Now, each department already has overtime in their individual budgets based on past practices and so forth. We wanted to create a separate account we put it under concessions because there are no seasonal employees right now in that category. And it's conditioned on Barb and I agreeing when they ask for in advance. And the reason we're asking the managers to do this, because we don't want to divvy it up into the 7 departments and then it's free to spend as they see fit. We want it to be sure it's accomplishing our goals and objectives for the year and using it as emergency needed, or not emergency, but as needed to keep up with maintenance if we have a storm or that kind of thing. The other part of this is we did not hire any seasonals. We aren't hiring any contract labor. So we've got to make up for all that with current staff. And without violating any HIPAA rules, we have a number of staff that are under FMLA, under the pandemic rules. And so we need to possibly make up for those absences as well. So we have this separate request to put that into, not into each department, but into the budget for request by the department heads in advance. So if they say, okay, to keep up with, the next 2 weeks, we got to schedule 5 10s to repair the flood damage in order to catch up, then that overtime would come out of this account.
But that's just the reallocation of those funds though.
Yes,
Okay,
that's not an increase in this.
Right.
budget. It's
All right.
put it into a separate category.
So even though it's in enterprises, it's for all departments, even though
Right.
it's,
Because if we divvied it up, we'd have
Right.
to guess which department needs how much, and we had no basis on which to make that estimate. So
understood.
it's
That's a
available
total
to
of
all the departments.
$60,000?
60,000.
60,000, okay, understood.
okay.
All right. Further questions by the board in this regard for resolution 33? It's on staffing updates. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes will carry. All right, we're going to move on to the director's report. You do see Bob's written report in front of you over the course of this last month. I had no questions in that regard. Any questions by the board in regard to Bob's written report?
No.
All right, Bob, the floor is yours if you need it.
Yes, just take a minute. First of all, I too want to thank the public for their support and the staff for their reacting positively to all the unforeseen changes during the pandemic to finish up going from a transition and not knowing what our future is to knowing we've got funding for the next 8 years, and to do whatever was called upon them, including things like getting their, wearing masks as appropriate for our schedule. These were made out of old t-shirts that a lot of people donated from the parks, and the volunteers, including Corianne's mother, sewed them, especially this one I picked because it's got has the logo on it.
Like that, that's sharp.
So that's been a very challenging time for everybody, and that's both for our staff and for the public. And I just wanted to acknowledge that we appreciate their support. I think one of the positives that came out of this is our usage was up 167% because of there was nothing else that they could do. And I think it's been a positive that a lot of people, we've had a lot of new visitors that weren't regular park users. So I think in the long run, this is also going to be a positive for the parks. I also wanted to mention that the mindfulness walk that we had received the governor's award from the state of Ohio for has just received the national award from the National Association of County Park and Recreation Associations.
Well
So
done.
another shout out to the staff and the community partners that helped us develop that, Starkmar and all the manufacturers and businesses that helped build that with us. So I wanted to acknowledge that outstanding effort as well. Quickly now, the update of the COVID status. We are one of 8 counties that's been invited to be on the governor's committee under the ODNR director, Mary Mertz, working on reopening criteria and guidelines as we go through this transition. So we meet every Monday via Zoom and discuss where we are individually and where the state park system is and what changes are contemplated and how we can move into the next phase while protecting both staff and the public safety in the process. So we've been working hard to have our input, but as well as using it as our guidance for all the transitions. Locally, we started all staff effective Monday, May 4th, are working their full 40 hours. We had a very flexible interpretation of that with everything going on. But we are now, even with, a lot of them are still working remotely, but they're now clocking in on our Cronus system. So we've formalized it now that we've figured out how to do all that. And more people are able to come in to work to keep up with the day-to-day maintenance and projects that we have. We have set building occupancy limits for all workspaces, which will be posted here this week so that the staff working there knows that there's only 4 maybe allowed in a space that maybe 8 or 12 were allowed before. And if people are working from home, they have to call in and coordinate with their supervisor before they physically come in the office to make sure we maintain those limits on spatial restrictions. Currently, all buildings and restrooms are still closed to the public. We are reviewing along with the state officials about how and when we might open our restrooms. And but that's in the evaluation stage. We have no predictions of when that would change. Of course, the parks and trails have remained open throughout this pandemic with the help of our rangers and staff and the cooperation of the public. We put signage to reinforce the governor's directive for social distancing throughout the parks and trail system. And our rangers have said, in general, it is being voluntarily followed. Occasionally, they have to approach and educate public, but the public has been very receptive to that change of living conditions. I mean, I equate it to, I go in the grocery store and people haven't figured out one way yet, you know, and you mention something that, you know, they apologize and they turn around and go the right way. That's the kind of reception we're getting also throughout our system. More densely populated areas aren't having as much luck as I shouldn't say luck, cooperation, but we have not had major challenges. We have posted spatial markings on the T-dock as far as fishing spacing. And by the end of this week, we hope to have similar markings at the docks at Walborn and Deer Creek. So we're trying to reinforce that between signage and so forth. Educational programming is still going on, all live. Online, some video, some live, and we're experimenting with all of these opportunities and getting better at it as they go along. We've had thousands of hits on these programs. So it's, I think, teaching us something, again, positive to come out of all this negative is teaching us a way to be more effective in reaching all the population. As I noted earlier, staff are wearing masks in accordance with our guidelines, and the governor's guidelines and recommendations. And management team is meeting weekly to review all of these conditions and trying to keep up with the changes and implement changes that we have to. That's it on, well, no, the last one is, as a result of having the staff fully engaged at one level or another, I should say, not everybody's working in their traditional job location right now. We're using them throughout the parks as needed. So some programmers might be working with animal rehab or with natural resource and invasive species control, but we're keeping them all productive to try to cover the workload. With that in mind, I do want to ask the board to revise resolution 20-04-025. That was the one that authorized 3 take-home vehicles during this crisis. What I'd like to do is have a resolution to rescind 2 of those 3 authorizations, to remove the operations manager and the construction supervisor, leaving only the parks and trail supervisor taking home his vehicle. He still is the first call for tree falling and that type of thing. So we feel it's cost effective and efficient to be able to have his vehicle at his disposal at home. The other 2, and this would be effective as of Friday, May 8th, that we would cease that operation.
A new resolution for today.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna move in and do that now.
Yes, because the next thing is to go to executive session.
Okay. Let's move forward with new resolution 20-05-034. And that is the removal of take-home vehicles. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Very good. And a second?
Second.
And just for clarification, that'll be removing the authority of both the operations manager and the construction manager to take their vehicles home. And
Construction supervisor, but yes.
I'm sorry, supervisor, yes. And that will just remain, just one person will have a take-home vehicle at that point. And remind me, what position is that again?
It's the Parks and Trail Supervisor.
Very good. Okay. Any discussion on that by the board? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes will carry on resolution 034. Now we will make a motion to exit general session and move into executive session for some staffing discussions.
Yeah, this would be for employment, promotion, and compensation of a public employee, and to prepare for a bargaining session with the public employees concerning their compensation and other terms and conditions of their employment.
Okay, I have a motion to make that movement.
So moved.
Very good, Ralph. And a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Um,
We don't need to vote on that,
Yeah, you do, but you need a roll call. But before you do, I just want to mention to the public benefit, there will be no action asked of the board after the executive session. But we will come back to adjourn the meeting, but that's all just for information purposes. I wanted to, before you went into executive session, to inform the public of that.
But after our vote, I thought our roll call was once we're in executive session, no?
No, it's before you go into executive.
Okay, roll call then, please.
Andy Hayden,
Here.
Denise Freeland.
Here.
Bill Bryan. Ralph Dublikar.
Here.
Pat Quick,
Here.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes will carry. We'll move over to executive